The NHL draft is just a couple of weeks away now, and we've all heard the names Connor Bedard, Matvei Michkov, Adam Fantilli, and so on. But there are plenty more prospects that could be difference makers for your favorite NHL team in just a few years' time. This video is going to highlight some lesser known 2023 NHL draft eligible players that I think are underrated and could be steals of the draft. If that sounds interesting to you, make sure to stick around for the whole video and consider hitting that subscribe button if you're new around here. If you like NHL draft content, this is the channel for you. All that being said, let's get into today's video. Nilsson was a tweener this season, spending about a third of the season in the SHL and the rest at the J20 level in Sweden. He doesn't have many tools that make me think he's going to be a strong offensive threat at higher levels of hockey, and perhaps this is reflected in his lack of scoring at the SHL level. To be fair though, he didn't get much ice time in that league when he was in the lineup. Additionally, he's one of the youngest players in the draft, so he has a bit more runway in terms of development time than other players in this class. He's a relatively smart player and he's very reliable on defense. Although he isn't very reliant on his skating to get him out of tough situations, he will need to improve on his skating. Also, while he has shown some flashes of playmaking ability and he does have more time to add offense to his game, I suspect he might end up being a defensive specialist in the NHL. But hey, defense wins championships, right? Soto has one major flaw in his game that is potentially going to hold him back, and that is his skating. Listed at 5'11", 168 pounds, he lacks the speed of other players his size. Although his agility is a bit more impressive when he tries to do something complicated such as a difficult stick handle while making a cutback, he often loses his footing. As such, his ability to avoid pressure and create space for himself is pretty limited when the puck is on his stick. However, he does have some good offensive tools that make him a worthwhile pick. Strong off-puck positioning and good vision make him a reasonably strong playmaker, and he often puts himself into ideal shooting lanes, giving him decent goal-scoring upside despite an average shot. He also has a reasonably high compete level, giving him the profile of a solid bottom 6 NHLer. I don't think Moore is underrated the same way most of the other players on this list are. While the rest of these players are generally ranked anywhere from the mid-first round to the late second, Moore is consistently ranked in the top 10, and rightfully so. What makes him different is that the players ranked ahead of him are so good, I think Moore gets forgotten about a little bit. He's probably the best skater in the draft. He's so explosive and fast, he has top 6 forward written all over him. With a little more refinement in his overall offensive play, he could be a very dangerous top-line player in the NHL. It isn't very often you get a chance to draft someone who is as good of a skater as Moore is as a draft eligible. He doesn't have the super high-end tools and skills that you often see with really high-end picks, but he's still a guy I could see going top 2 in a lot of drafts. Above average skating, hockey sense, and compete level scream future middle 6 forward to me. Average puck skills, including an average at best shot, probably limit his upside to a complimentary second line guy, but he already plays a style of game that is well suited to that role. As a Sharks fan, he reminds me a lot of Alexander Barabanov. I don't think he'll ever be much more than that, but he also has a very good chance of being a regular NHLer. One of those high floor, low ceiling kind of guys. This kind of player seems to be rather divisive among scouts in terms of rankings, as some are going to prefer the safe bet while others are going to prefer guys with more upside. It's no surprise to me that Craig Button has him ranked higher than most public agencies, as he has NHL connections. At Dauber, we are the only public agency that is higher on him than Craig, and I think there's a very good chance he'll get drafted in that range. He could even be a dark horse for a late first round pick. Brindley has been overshadowed by one of his teammates this year, some guy named Adam Fantilli. While Fantilli put up historic numbers for Michigan this year, Brindley's season was also very impressive. 38 points in 41 NCAA games as a true freshman and first-time draft eligible is still very impressive. So why is he projected to go late in the first round? There are two factors that stand out to me. First, he is small, like 5'9", 159 pounds small. Players under 5'10" give NHL GMs the hives, so he's almost certainly going to be lower on a lot of teams' boards than perhaps he deserves to be just based on size alone. Second, and perhaps even more importantly, there's the Fantilli effect. Brindley started off the season centering his own line, but as Michigan dealt with injuries, they ended up moving him to the wing on Fantilli's line, where he looked even better than he did before. Is it possible he simply improved as the season went along? Sure. Is it also possible that he benefited from playing with the Hobey Baker Award winner? Yes. It is also possible that he's more comfortable on the wing than he is at center. Regardless though, there will certainly be doubts about his performance this year. Some will be inclined to think his second half production is due entirely to the fact he was playing with Fantilli, while others might give him a little bit more credit for his own production. That makes him a particularly interesting player to watch at the draft in my opinion. Who do you think played more SHL games this year, Leo Carlsson or Oscar Fisker Molgaard? The answer is Leo Carlsson, but only by 3 games. That's a pretty big testament to how good Fisker Molgaard is, or at least how mature his game is. He's arguably the best defensive forward in the class. He plays a very tenacious game in his defensive zone, constantly applying pressure to the puck carrier. Offensively, he has some good instincts, particularly in regards to his off-puck movement and positioning, but his puck skills are well below average. You never know, he could develop his offensive toolkit to increase his upside, but even in a perfect situation, I would expect him to maybe be the 7th highest scoring forward on an NHL team. His offensive upside is certainly lower than the previously mentioned Felix Nilsson, but his defensive game is even more refined and he's already adapted to the pro game, making his projection a little bit more certain. Perreault is an interesting prospect. On the one hand, he set the record for points in a season by a player in the US National Team Development Program this year. On the other hand, he played with 2 very good line mates in Will Smith and Ryan Leonard. His skating is an issue, and he's small. For these reasons, if a scout thinks his success this season came largely from his line mates, then he's going to be ranked pretty low as a guy with some skill but skating and size deficiencies, which generally isn't a very good combination. However, if other scouts think his success has more to do with his own play, then he could be ranked pretty highly by some teams. Publicly though, he's generally ranked in the early to mid-20s, which does feel a bit low for him to me, and I suspect he's going to go in that range or later. He has great situational awareness in the offensive zone with a really good idea of where the open ice is and where it's gonna be as his teammates cycle the puck. His shot is above average, and he was often used as the finisher for that line, but he also threw the puck into dangerous areas for his teammates to capitalize on rather frequently. Don't expect him to be particularly effective in his own zone, though. Mania didn't put up crazy point totals this year, but you might not guess that based on his highlight reels. He's a very toolsy defenseman that at times looks more like a forward with some of the things he tries. A lot of the time this worked for him at the junior level, but I do wonder how some of the more fancy stuff will translate to higher levels of hockey. His high level of creativity suggests to me that he has the hockey sense to adapt his game based on what he's given though. He's very patient with the puck on his stick, often waiting to draw defenders toward him, opening up space for his teammates. Publicly, he is a bit divisive, being ranked anywhere as high as 39 and as low as 101. He's pretty raw, but his puck skills alone make him an interesting pick on day 2, and if he falls into the second half of the second round, he could be great value as a high upside bet. Shout out to Mitch Brown of Elite Prospects for allowing me to use this B-roll for this video. Go drop him a follow on Twitter. Perron is very small, but his size doesn't concern me the same way it will concern NHL GMs. He's one of the best skaters in the draft, and he's got some very nice tools to go along with that, making him a very dangerous player in the offensive zone. His shot is very nice, but he is also a threat to pass, so defenses and goalies have to respect both options when the puck is on his stick. He also has one of the best motors in the draft, meaning you're always going to get a consistent high level of effort from him, and this applies to all 3 zones. There aren't many 5'8" players in the NHL, but I'm reasonably confident Perron is going to be one of them. My colleagues and I at Dobber Prospects are higher on him collectively than any other public scouting service that I am aware of, with our Director of North American Scouting, Hadi Kalakesh, championing him the most. Check him out on the Locked On Prospects podcast, available anywhere you listen to podcasts, or on YouTube. Some of you may have noticed that my video on Simashev is no longer on the channel. This is because it received a DMCA takedown from the KHL. While I believe that this copyright strike is bogus, as my video was sufficiently transformative to fall under fair use, there isn't really anything I can do about it. I haven't figured out a solution just yet, so for now, instead of a video of Simashev playing here, I'm just going to use some pictures of him as B-roll. However, I can still tell you why I think he's underrated, so let's get into that. He is very effective at his primary job as a defenseman. While his cycle or in-zone defensive impact is about average, his defense against the rush is very good, and he is particularly effective at preventing the other team from gaining his blue line in the first place. He creates tons of turnovers in transition and regularly forces dump-ins in instances where opponents were hoping for a controlled zone entry. He's also very good at getting the puck out of his zone, whether he needs to make a simple pass under pressure along the boards, or he needs to take the puck behind his net and skate it out himself. The puck always seems to be moving in the right direction for his team. If all of this is the case, then why is he underrated? That comes from his offensive production. Quite simply, he didn't produce much offense at the MHL level this year. However, I am of the belief that his point totals don't tell the whole story. He regularly created scoring chances at a rate that makes me think he can produce more offense than the numbers would suggest so far. He's an excellent passer, and he has multiple ways to create space in the offensive zone. With better luck and perhaps better teammates, I think he can be a legit top 4 two-way defenseman. Who do you think is underrated? Did I miss anyone? Is anyone I talked about in this video rated properly? I'm curious to see what you guys think. That is it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and hey, let me know what you think down in the comments below. Also, getting kind of close to 1,000 subs. Help your boy out, eh? Maybe? Take care, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.